Tigers lose the home opener to the Boston Red Sox, and that's what we're going to talk about today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, April 7th, 2023. Thank you for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Alrighty, Tigers drop the home opener of the 2023 season by a score of 6-3 to the Boston Red Sox. There is honestly like a weirdly a lot amount of things I have to say about this game, which I didn't really expect like while I was watching it, but afterwards when I was prepping, I was like, wow, I actually have quite a bit to say about this one. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I think I want to start with, well, happy home opening day, everybody. I know kind of got soured there with a loss, but still a very, very fun day in Detroit. Downtown is always rocking. This is the first year I didn't go in a very long time. I'm still not feeling great and had to be a responsible adult, unfortunately. But very, very fun time. And Comerica's always bumping, and the first pitch and whatnot was super cool. So very much appreciate Detroiters. I love this city more than anything in the world. And unfortunately, that means loving this baseball team the same amount. And that has not brought me very much happiness over the last lot of years. But I was going to say the first thing I want to say, but I already kind of said some other stuff there. So the first thing I want to say about the game is, boy, does that outfield wall look terrible. Golly. I want to say somebody put out there that Harris made a comment where the walls are still a work in progress. But like, my goodness, can they change it mid-season? Like, are they going to have time? Is there a road trip long enough for them to do that? Like, I don't know. I think it's going to look like that all year. And that's kind of disappointing because they look absolutely terrible. I think Comerica Park is one of the best parks in baseball. And I've been to 2/3 of the major league parks, and I of course I have insane bias, and I get that, whatever. But I've always maintained that Comerica is one of the most underrated parks in all of baseball, and my goodness, does that outfield wall just look awful? So I hope that's not the permanent look. I hope that it's not just slapping a shorter wall in front of the other wall. That looks absolutely awful. It's an eyesore on TV. I'll tell you that. Maybe it's not as bad in person, although I'd imagine it is. But when a ball is hit to center field, it is ugly. So I'm hoping that is not a permanent fixture and that they, whatever, bring the shrubbery out or I don't care what. Just make it not look the way it does right now. But I do think that we're going to have to sit through a season of it. So that was like the very first thing I noticed. There was a ball hit to center field relatively early on in this ball game, and boy, oh boy, could you tell. Miggy, final opening day. Very, very cool, obviously. Cool to see him getting an ovation in front of everyone. Like I said, the first pitch, Calvin Johnson, Nick Lidstrom, Ben Wallace, Miguel Cabrera all throwing out the first pitch there. Detroit royalty. Very, very well done. Festivities and whatnot, as they always do. This city is just dying for a winner, man. Just begging for one of these teams to be a winner. I know the Lions are seem to be close there, but I mean, goodness gravy, just begging for one of these teams to be halfway decent, even. And that's really all that this first pitch really reminded me of. But it was still very cool, and glad to see all of them out there, to be honest with you. So yeah, very, very cool start to the game. Begging for a winner, did not get one, sadly, in this one. As I said, that's a pro transition right there. 6-3 loss to the Boston Red Sox at home. Chris Sale on the bump for the Boston Red Sox. He started off this game with 8 straight balls, and I was kind of like, "Oh my goodness, this is going to go our way." And honestly, like early on, I thought they had a pretty decent approach there for the first time through the lineup. But he recovered nicely. I mean, he struck out the side still after 2 straight walks there to start off the game, so that's not great. But he's just started throwing the sinker, like the fastball command he clearly did not have, which like nobody really had that pitched for either team in this game. We can kind of talk about that a little bit later, but he just started throwing the sinker instead, and it worked. And he put together a pretty solid outing. I mean, 3 earned runs in 5 innings. It's not a masterclass by any stretch, but if he was able to go one more, that's a quality start. That's not the worst thing in the world. So, yeah, I mean, look, also his stuff is down. Like the velocity's down so far in the first couple of starts on the year. The spin is way down. I know he's had a lot of injury stuff for the last few seasons, but I kind of hope that he can get back to what he was, because he was a really fun pitcher to watch there for a while. Tigers yet again, 0 clutch hitting. That's really the name of the game in this one as well. They had 11 base runners. Like they had 6 hits and 5 walks, which I was music to my ears, to 5 walks, but you have to hit them home still too, right? Well, you can't have a 2-base walk. So gotta be able to hit them home. And with 11 base runners, only 1 run was scored not off of the Jake Rogers home run, right? So 11 base runners, if you want to exclude the homer and the man on base for that homer, that's still 1 run on 9 base runners elsewhere. That's just not good enough. That's we can just be blunt about it. That's not going to cut it very many times in this game at the professional level, at the major league level rather. So need more clutch hitting. Need it in a bad way. It just felt clunky. I don't know. And also, this team is not going to win very many games where the top of the lineup doesn't produce. Okay, Matt Vierling was good again. Shout out Matt Vierling. When you're hot, kid. When you're hot. He's feeling it. Had another hit and a walk at this one. Got on base twice. But Javi and Green combined go 0 for 8 with 3 Ks, I want to say, or 4. 3 or 4 strikeouts between the two of them, and an 0 for 8 all around. Javi with a walk in there, which is weird to say out loud, but that was just the second batter of the game, Chris Sale, doing his 8 straight balls to start off the ball game. But the top 3 combined go 1 for 12 with 2 walks. And again, those 2 walks were to start off the game. So after the first inning, that wasn't a thing either. Everyone hitting 4 through 8, including the 2 pinch hitters. Okay. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that's 5 hitters plus 2 more pinch hitters, all get on base at least once with either a hit or a walk. All of them. But you got nothing out of your 9-hole, which we'll talk about later. And unfortunately, nothing out of the top of the lineup. And it just goes to show you need the dudes who are getting the most at-bats, the most plate appearances on your team to come through. And in this game, they just, simply didn't. Like I said, it just felt choppy after the Rogers homer, to be honest with you. Like early on, I felt like decent approaches first time through the lineup. But as the game went along, they just, similar to what we said in Houston several times, they just couldn't string together good at-bats. Just no flow. If they did get a hit or a base runner, it was with 2 outs and nobody on. Or they would get somebody and the next 2 would ground out and pop out. You know what I mean? Like there's just there was no flow and no consistency from batter to batter, and that's what good teams do. So individually, like I said, Green and Baez struggled. Vierling looked really good, but there's a couple, well, really like 2 other offensive performances that I thought, individual performances that I thought were on the good end. We'll talk individually on the bad end as well, but we will do that right after I tell y'all about our friends over at So Rare. It's a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience. You can collect, buy, sell, and compete with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. It's super cool. I tried to explain it on the last episode, but I really, really struggled through it for whatever reason. So I'll try to do a little bit better in this one. They use an action-based scoring system, right? Fantasy-based. So where events happen on the baseball field, they immediately translate into positive or negative points for your so rare team. Game weeks happen twice weekly. They're a 3 to 4 day cycle. So you have Monday through Thursday. Then you have your weekend slate of Friday through Sunday games. Game weeks start 10 minutes before the first game in those windows. The scoring, it's super, super easy and simple. And as far as obtaining cards, it's MLB Marketplace. It's a new card auction with manager sales. It's super, super fun. They allow you to buy newly minted cards directly from So Rare, as each auction will have an expiration time and date. If you are the highest bidder when the auction expires, then you win that card. Direct peer-to-peer as well. It really is. There's nothing like it. It's a really fascinating concept. I've loved messing with it over the last few days since they started sponsoring Locked On. I love it. It is really, really fascinating is the word for it. I've never really seen anything like it. So be sure to head to sorare.com/locked on. That's SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/locked on to start playing today. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Let's get back into this ball game. We still got a lot to go over in this 6-3 loss at the hands of the Boston Red Sox. So individually, we already kind of talked about some players that struggled. I do want to give a nod to Miguel Cabrera just because, you know what, it's weird. Like, the numbers are obviously not great. I mean, we're not going to like sugarcoat anything here. At least I try not to. The numbers aren't great, and I don't think throughout the season the numbers are going to be great. But I will tell you one thing. If there's a runner in scoring position, you're about to see a better at bat than than you have in a while from Miguel Cabrera. And that's dating back to last year. It just seemed like he consistently, and again, I'm not saying like guaranteed anything. He's certainly not what he was back in the MVP days or whatnot, but he does seem to put together significantly better at bats with runners in scoring position still, and that's at least there's something in there that he still gets fired up about bringing in some RBIs. So that was nice to see. Nice to see him get a ribby there. And then the Jake Rogers homer was nice. He crushed that baseball. The bat sounded like a cannon going off. That was absolutely destroyed. And I think he's been seeing the ball really well lately. And he is, without question, the best catcher on this team. So I think we should see a significant spike in playing time from him. I know we're only a week into the season. I don't care. I'm ready. Put him out there as often as comfortable. I think he should kind of get past the baton to be the catcher of this team. That's not to say that Eric Haas, if he hits well, can't still play 100, 110 games, but DH in left field and whatnot, which he did in this game. Another thing offensively, and this is the last one, then we'll get into the defense and then the pitching. Austin Meadows is just driving me up a wall, man. And like I thought early in spring, he lifted the ball a little bit, and I thought it was going to be somewhat of a different story. But A, we're seeing why a lot of people take spring training with a grain of salt. But B, like it is every single at bat is a ground out, or it's a ground ball single. Like everything is a ground ball, and it's nuts. And I would imagine an adjustment needs to be made, and we know what he can be. He had some phenomenal years in Tampa Bay. All-star caliber season in outfield in the American League. You know how good you have to be to be an all-star in the outfield in the AL? That is a loaded group. And so we know what he's capable of. We have seen it. But it is just ground ball after ground ball after ground ball. And clearly another adjustment needs to be made. And I'm really rooting for the dude as a human being, but also like obviously as part of my baseball team. And that's just something that something needs to change. Different approach, different pitch selection, different mechanically. I don't know what it is, but The first week of the season has been no different in that regard than what we saw last year. So something needs to change still there. And we'll see what adjustments can be made going forward throughout the rest of the weekend and whatnot. But didn't get the start, ended up pinch hitting, still getting a couple of at bats, and it like you got a high fastball in this one, high heat, right? Just spiked it right into the ground. So we'll see, but a lot of similarities so far for Austin Meadows. Defensively, I do want to talk about defense in this one. There's a couple of things I want to say defensively. One, Green is going to have to get some adjusting to the new dimensions. There was one ball specifically where he probably should have caught it and it cost us a run. I think the relay was just late or it popped out of Jake Rogers' glove or something like that. So that's going to be something that is going to take some adjusting. I don't think it'll take too long because it's not like he has like 8 years of the old dimensions. Like he played in half the year last season. So that's really, I don't think it should take too terribly long to adjust to the new dimensions, but it was on full display as like baseball does, right? There was a 414-foot homer out there by the Red Sox, and then obviously a play right there, which would have been closer to a routine type of fly out if the walls weren't brought in. So some adjustments will have to be made there. I'm not losing sleep over it in this game necessarily, but clearly some adjustments have to be made. The one big thing, and I know I'm going to talk a lot about something that didn't even end up costing the Tigers runs, but it's little stuff like this that drives me mad. Okay. So just like sit back, relax, close your eyes unless you're driving, and just let me kind of ramble here for a second. So there was one play specifically, and again, it didn't cost the team any runs, but it was right before the pickle at third base mayhem play. Okay. It wasn't that play, it was the play before it. Okay. And it was just a routine fly out to center field, and it drove me nuts. So there's first and second, no outs. Okay. Leadoff double and then a walk. First and second, no outs. There's a fly ball to Riley Green in center. It's deep. He chooses to throw straight to third. He airmails Javi Baez, who's the cutoff man, goes straight to third base. It is not even close to being a competitive play. It is not a close play at third at all. Runner gets there standing. The ball's not even on line. It is a very deep throw, and it's uncompetitive. Duvall then, at first, advances to second. That can't happen, and that's just fundamentally not sound whatsoever. Okay? You have to either hit the cutoff man so that if Duvall is making a run for it, you can get him out at second, or just go straight to second base. So then you have Duvall stays at first. You have let him go to third. You then have first and third, one out. A double play gets you out of this inning unscathed. Instead, you tried to be Superman a little bit. And again, like in no universe, you would have had to have had like Roberto Clemente's arm out there to have it. It was not a close play at all. And instead, then you had second and third, one out. Now, again, awful base running by Boston made it not really matter. And you got out of the inning without giving up a run. But that kind of stuff cannot happen. Better decision making has to be made. Stuff like that is going to cost you over the course of 162. And that was just like a really, really niche, like very laid back, like again, a routine fly ball. He threw it into the infield with both runners advanced, whatever. But like that's the kind of stuff that drives me nuts. That absolutely cannot happen. Okay, so that was just something I wanted to point out. It's a much different situation when you're talking about runners at the corners, one out versus second and third, one out. Worlds different. Okay, that can't happen. All right. So anyway, just wanted to ramble a little bit there. Let's move on. The last thing defensively, Javi Baez spiking the ball into the ground is one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. Like everything he throws to Torkelson at first is he spikes into the dirt. And look, Torque has proven dating back to last season, even when he was really struggling at the plate and in a lot of other areas, he can scoop the ball really well. And that's great. That's awesome. And as long as it's not costing us, I guess I'll kind of bite my tongue and be like, okay, whatever. We have much bigger fish to fry than like plays that are still outs at the end of the day. Okay. So I'm not gonna freak out about it right now, but the second that it starts costing us base runners and then runs, I'm gonna lose my mind at it then. Okay, so it's just something that everybody is noticing, and it's mind-boggling to me how consistently every single throw to first it seems to be something that he has to scoop. It's just wild. It really is just wild. Okay, let's get into the pitching side of things. But first, I got to tell y'all about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers are getting a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, it's super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line, point scores, threes drained, etc. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for the chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody. What in the heck? Oh, you can't even see it. There's like holes in my shirt. It looks like, I don't even know. It looks like it got melted. How is that even possible? Looks like I got really bad rug burn, so bad that it melted the sleeve of my shirt. I don't know what that is. Welcome back. Third and final segment here, Locked On Tigers. Okay, let's get into the pitching in this ballgame. Look at that. We saved pitching for last. I think that's 2 games in a row we've done pitching last. Spencer Turnbull in this one goes 5 2/3, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, and just the 1 strikeout. This was certainly not his best start, and is very much not even close to the best start we've ever seen from him, obviously with a no-hitter under his belt. And we know what he can be at his best, right? As I just said. And this was not that. 2 of those 5 runs were part of the Cisnero 3-run introductory homer that he's becoming rather fond of, which we'll talk about the bullpen in a second here. But so he was 1 out away, 1 strike away. I think 2 strikes away. He was an out away from 6 innings, 3 earned runs, which is a quality start. Like statistically, the stat quality start is 6 innings, 3 earned runs. So he was 1 batter away from that, and instead he gets 5 2/3, 5 runs. That's just how baseball goes. So not his best start, but I thought obviously compared to start 1, which was horrible, was a much bigger step in the right direction. And if we're taking these steps in the right direction, like you got to remember, these are his first 2 starts back of competitive baseball since not pitching for over a year and a half because of Tommy John. So if we're still taking steps in the right direction, if we're improving every time out there, I'll take this as his second start if the next one's better than the next one and the next one's better than the next one. Okay. Had some command issues, still 2 walks, hit batter, kind of all over the place as well. Couldn't hit his spots very consistently. Only 1 swing and miss the entire outing is certainly not great. And that's something that a lot of people talked about in this one. The pitch mix, I think, was really interesting and might have had a factor in it, but he only threw the slider 6 times all game. And that's the one thing I want to address, because in 2021, that was his most thrown pitch, right? Like that is the pitch he threw the most. So, most thrown secondary pitch. The fastball was the one he threw the most. It was his second most thrown pitch. So, to see him only throw that 6 times the entire outing, threw it less than his curveball, which he like barely ever throws, is definitely something, not a red flag, but a siren goes off and you go, okay, I think maybe he just realized really early on that he didn't have the feel for it, and went in and kind of did a pitch to contact sort of approach more so after realizing that he didn't have a feel for the slider, because it was a lot of fastballs, a lot of sinkers, and a lot of changeups in this game, which for him kind of all point to more of a pitch to contact style there. But definitely something to watch, because he wasn't afraid to throw the slider in the first outing. I think he threw the slider more than the fastball in the first outing, but that didn't go very well. So we'll see what happens. Was efficient, like didn't have a very high pitch count until it kind of blew up there in the sixth inning. And that weird neck injury, by the way, it sounds like it's nothing, but he also didn't last very long after it. So we'll see what happens. But he said it was just kind of a stinger. He moved his neck too quickly, trying to get out of the way of the ball, and it just stung for a little bit, and he's fine now. So we'll see what happens. I guess that we'll just take his word for it for now. But definitely a weird start. One swing and miss is wild, and that's not to say that that's not something that was not cause for concern, but something that people were looking in from Turnbull pre Tommy John was to get more swings and misses because his stuff moves a boatload. He has crazy stuff, and for whatever reason, just couldn't consistently get those swings and misses, and has had some command issues as well. So we'll see what happens. I'm very, very interested in the lack of throwing the slider in this game. We'll see if it carries over into the next one. Like I said, cold weather. Maybe he was just going more for a pitch to contact thing and just didn't have a feel for that slider. But we'll see. We'll see. Let's talk bullpen. Okay, we'll end the show on some great, fun Tigers bullpen talk. This is going to be a wild ride. This is going to be a wild, wild ride all season. Jose Cisnero is where we have to start here. Look, if you listen to this show every day, first off, I love you and appreciate you. But you're well aware that me saying this is kind of like a broken record comment at this point. Because we've been talking about it here since basically his first appearance back from injury last season. He's just not the same pitcher that he was in 2020 and 2021 when he was arguably the best reliever on this team. Not only is the velocity down, and today the secondary stuff was, I mean, we can call a spade a spade. It was awful. Just zero secondary pitches. The slider was not sliding whatsoever in this game, to the point where he stopped throwing it. He ended up just throwing pretty much all four-seam fastballs, which again, his velocity is down on. Like it's just he's and on top of all of that, I'm not trying to pile on the guy, but like the command has just not been there at all since coming back from injury. That's dating back to last season. Last season, he walked like 18% of batters he faced. And we talked about it last year. I came on here pretty much every single appearance he had, and I was like, I don't know how he has a 1.3 ERA or whatever he ended with, because his whip is 9 or whatever. That's obviously an exaggeration and not possible, but like he was walking everyone, just no feel for the zone anymore, but kept his ERA low. And then this year, it seems to be not too much different. Just no feel for anything so far this season. Still crazy command issues. I know a lot of people are rightfully very not happy with him at the moment. I mean, he's given up 2 3-run homers immediately after entering ball games now, and we're a week into the season. I will say this, and we've said it a lot. This team is going to have a lot of changes in bullpen roles. Okay, the roles on this team, they're going to change very frequently based on performance. And I can't imagine that Jose Cisnero is going to get too many like high leverage or inheriting runners in close game situations for the foreseeable future. Okay. And like, I understand like he had a bad game in Houston. So like, why would you go back to him? But one game is a fluke. Not okay. I shouldn't say that. One game is not always a fluke. One game can be a fluke. You got to give someone a decent sample size to show their true colors. Is that how I want to word it? I don't know. You get what I'm trying to say. So I don't think that will be happening anytime soon. And we'll see. I mean, just with where he's at right now, the stuff is not what it was. The fastball velocity is not what it was. The secondary stuff is not what it was. And he has no command. I mean, that's pretty much every facet of pitching. We'll see what happens. But I would imagine it's going to start with a downsizing and roll, and then from there, if he continues to struggle, if he bounces back, then he bounces back and you have a good reliever again. But if he doesn't, then yeah, you're talking about somebody who's not going to be in this bullpen by like the middle of May, if you want to get super dramatic with it. Mason Englert, 6 whiffs in 1 1/3 innings pitched, and a whiff on 3 different pitches of his. Okay, just for scale, the rest of the Tigers pitchers as a whole in this entire game, so every single person that took the bump, not named Mason Englert, combined for 2 whiffs. Mason Englert had 6 in an inning and an out. 2 whiffs. Jose Cisnero had 1, Spencer Turnbull had 1, and Alex Lang had 0. You had 8 total whiffs, and Mason Englert in an inning and a third was responsible for 6 of them. I really like his slider. It's going to play. I also really like his ability to go multiple innings. I think he's going to see a lot of work this season. I really do, which I'm happy about because he looks good so far. And that's not to say it's not going to come with some lumps, probably. We saw what happened on opening day. He's a Rule 5 pick at the end of the day. I don't think he should just go out there and be like the highest leverage reliever immediately, but I do think that he's going to get utilized a lot this season. Alex Lang, honestly, I didn't like this outing very much either at all. But no runs given up. So I guess we have bigger fish to fry. I'm not going to harp too much on him, I guess. But he has some of the best stuff I've literally ever seen. And so when his command is just totally out of whack, it's really frustrating to me. The velocity was down in this game too. Maybe again, just chalk it up to the cold weather. We'll see what happens. But he's frustrating because at his best, I have a hard time believing that there's too many relievers better than him. It's just about consistently being at his best. So we'll see what happens. But again, much bigger fish to fry in this game than Alex Lang at the end of the day. That's really it. Another game that was pretty winnable. And honestly, I feel like you were in control of until the 6th inning there. Then at bats as well, offensively, from the 6th through the 9th inning were like not as nice. They just weren't as competitive as they were in the first half of the game. You need to string together good at bats. You need to not give up home runs immediately out of the bullpen. That'd be nice. And for the love of everything, I would like a starter to go 6 innings. We are a week into the season. We still have not seen that from a single starter. I would just like a quality start from a Detroit Tigers pitcher, please. Thank you. Tough loss, but looking ahead, okay, I will say to end you with a little bit of positivity going into your weekend, I do think that you are still very capable of taking 2 of 3. I'm not like predicting it or saying it's a guarantee or anything like that, but I do think it's extremely doable, like extremely doable. Tanner Houck had a rough first outing of the year, and Cutter Crawford got lit up in his first outing. Like you just lost to their opening day starter, who again, like he didn't have a great first outing either, and whatnot, but you just lost to presumably their best pitcher. Like that's their opening day starter. And when you look at the relievers they use, Schreiber and Jansen, etc., a lot, not all of, they used a couple of lower leverage guys, but several of their high leverage relievers as well. This is winnable. You can go take 2 of 3. You can. All right. Go win Saturday with Joey Wentz on the mound against Tanner Houck. And then if you win Saturday, you're going into Sunday with a series split. You're going into the rubber match with objectively, no matter who you ask, including the city of Boston, the starting pitcher advantage with Matt Boyd going up against Cutter Crawford there. Okay? Go take 2. Saturday is obviously the big one. You can't win 2 without winning Saturday at this point. So we'll see what happens, but I still think it's very, very doable to recover from this and still have a pretty nice weekend. Okay? Cool. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. For your second listen, however, go check out Matt and Dom over at Locked On Fantasy Baseball. They are the best in the business. They're going to give you the best strategies out there. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, just like us, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Alrighty, I think that'll do it. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for tuning in as always. And we will be back on Monday, hopefully recapping a series win against the Red Sox. And if not, if we get swept, guess what? We'll be here anyways. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all on Monday, baby. Go Tigers.